Welcome to the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast, where we remember a time when stacks of cards were held together with rubber bands and Mickey Mantles were put in bike spokes. We hope you will enjoy and reminisce as you come along with us as we tell stories about the baseball cards from the Golden Age of Baseball. We will examine the state of the vintage baseball card market and talk to some of the greatest collectors in the hobby. You won't be hearing us talk about any chrome or shiny cards here. Now, to take you on this retrospective journey, here's your host, direct from the shallow end of the gene pool, my son, Mike Moynihan.
Yo, and hello, everybody. Mike here. Welcome to another episode of the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast. I need to apologize up front from the jump because I have a cold that I am getting over. So bear with me. I hope it won't interfere too much with the discussion we're going to have tonight with our guest. And it's a guy that I've gotten to know a little bit over the last probably couple of years, but really more so watching his content, meeting him, talking to him a little bit at the National, and but just a guy that I think is a powerful presence in our hobby. And I mean that in a positive way, in that he's got influence, he has a lot of knowledge, and he's kind of like us, guys. He is just a dude that loves cards, and that's what I really enjoy about him. And so we're going to just have a fun discussion tonight, going through all kinds of topics. I have some questions I want to ask him, and it'll just turn into a fun talk. So I hope you guys stick around for it. And it's none other than Leighton Sheldon from Just Collect. Hey, Leighton.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. We talked a little bit at the National. I was able to get a card from you at the National that I had won on Hobby Palooza. I was super excited. I won a gift card, and I picked a card, and you were awesome enough to get it to me. And 70 Topps Pete Rose on, like, I'll never forget. Like, these are, do you ever have that? Like, I get cards from a certain special something, and I never forget where I get them. It's kind of
Isn't it amazing? Because we get how many pieces of mail in our life and all other things that are, anything and everything in between. And yet, for some reason, whether it be it's the card, it's the piece of memorabilia, it goes to show how much the hobby really means to a lot of us.
Yeah. Every time I look at that card, I will go, I got that from Leighton from Hobby Palooza. That was so cool.
Yeah, that was a cool card. I remember what it was.
I loved it. I'm a big Hall of Fame / potential maybe Hall of Famer now, Pete Rose, autograph guy on Topps cards. And so I just love that a guy signs card, that having a card that a guy touched, and there's just a deeper connection than just, I love to own just the card too. But I like an autograph version. Well, I have a regular card when you can also have an autograph version. That's kind of how I look at it. All right. I want to get into some things with you, Leighton, because your hobby knowledge, hobby expertise, hobby dealings, business that you run, everything. For those that are living under a rock and don't know you, who are you? What do you do? And where can people watch you? Let's get that out of the way so people know.
Oh, sure. Well, I appreciate the chance of giving myself a plug.
Sure.
My name's Leighton Sheldon. I own a company called Just Collect. Our company turns 20 years old next year. We buy, sell, appraise, and broker vintage cards. We do deal with some modern cards, but vintage cards are certainly our specialty. Also co-founded a company called Vintage Breaks. We were kind of the first on the scene of breaking that. We're really specializing in vintage because you guessed it, I love vintage cards. And then I recently co-founded a company called Auction Wire, which if we have time today, we'll talk about. We're really excited to launch. But in a nutshell, we are going to be the Bloomberg terminal for you if you are someone who actively bids in auctions as a collector, a dealer, investor. We've all been inundated with data across dozens, if not 50 plus auction platforms. And all I want to do is find a Shoeless Joe Jackson card, Mike. And it's become more challenging, cumbersome than I ever really dreamed it would have. But it also is because the business is more successful, meaning at large, than I ever thought it would be, a few decades ago.
Okay. Well, unbelievable. Literally the first thing, I'll even show you guys. Auction houses is number one on my list. And so Leighton, my feeling is I've got buddies that are running auction houses now. Like it's guys that call me, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm like, man, we need another auction house. Like we need a hole in the head. And it's awesome. It's funny that there's enough product out there, enough consigners to make that work, which is, first of all, mind blowing to me that the hobby is that strong, that's true, that might be true. I don't know that it is true, but it might be true. And, I talked to Joe Orlando and, he's at Heritage and so I know guys in bigger auction houses and I know guys in startup auction houses. Is there enough room, Leighton, for all of these auction houses?
It's a great question. I don't know. And if you had to put a gun to my head, and I don't want to single one out because I know a lot of folks, but if you had to say to me, Leighton, why haven't you started an auction house? I can succinctly tell you why I have not started one, Mike.
Please.
And the reason is I don't know that I can do it better than it currently exists. I don't have a different angle. And if the only angle that I have is to be cheaper and to do better rates, that's not a business. And so that's why I hesitated. But at the same time, and once again, I don't want to single one out versus another because I know almost all of them. So if you think about a couple of them that might specialize, like in 90s cards or in Japanese baseball, like you may never be able to make a living being an auctioneer of Japanese baseball cards, but you'll definitely be remembered. And so I think that's where the challenge is. You're talking about the big time outfits, right? That everyone knows who they are, from the Heritages of the world and REAs and Memory Lane, etc., Mile High, so on and so forth. And then even like our friend Chris, who started an auction house, I think it's called CIA. Chris is a very well-known YouTube personality in the card space, and Jeremy is someone I've recently got to know, and I totally understand what they're doing. They're focusing kind of on everything. And my point is that makes a lot of sense to me to have an auction house that's maybe focused on collectors. Yes, collectors have some expensive cards like you, Mike, and I have, but we also have cheaper cards. At the same time, if you had to say to me, do I think it's a good idea to start an auction house today in our space, meaning the hobby sports world, I would say I'm not sure unless you're going to be highly specialized.
Well, I'll tell you, maybe this will be completely unsolicited feedback for your new auction wire thing, but as a collector, and people that listen to this show are by and large guys like me and girls like me that just want to buy cards. There are so many now, and they are most often overlapping, right? You've got REA, two big ones all ending within a week of each other or something. And I only have so many hobby dollars in my budget as everybody else does. And so you're going, all right, how do I make this work? I might have 3 cards in this one. Well, if I only win one, I'll go for these, and trying to keep up with all of it is mind numbing. I mean, you could literally scrap eBay, never use eBay again, and just use auction houses now. Granted, it tends to tilt towards higher end stuff, but more and more auction houses like CIA are catering to that mid-level kind of collector to low-level collector. I mean, you can go on CIA and buy cards for $20,
Yeah, also just a shout out to another an auction house that's like that is a buddy of mine named Scott. He runs Collector Connection. And what I really love about that auction is you can feel like you're a high roller bidding on a Ty Cobb, similar to CIA. At the same time, and I really, I'm not suggesting one versus another, but I personally have not only bought from his auction house, but have consigned. I've consigned like ungraded T206s that have sold for $38. And as you were alluding to earlier, it's just amazing that the industry at large, or the hobby, whatever you'd like to call it, has become so large. And the volume that's at stake, that's at play, is so big and massive that there's really enough for everyone to eat. And I think that's great. For myself, I feel like I'd like all those folks to be people are allies of mine, friends, people I bid with, consign with, etc. But unless I think I am going to be able to do it better, I'm very content operating the way that I am because I really kind of have everything I need, meaning the infrastructure is already there. The consignment rates, as you know, are very competitive between auction houses, depending on what you're selling. And then on the flip side of buying, that's really where the idea for Auction Wire came from, is that I could not believe I started logging, not necessarily what I thought I was wasting in terms of time, just the amount of time I was spending. And I'm like, oh my God. I put an Excel spreadsheet together one night just based on a very small amount of people that I thought could be suffering from the same inefficiencies. And I thought there was a lot of time being wasted. So I'm looking forward to, going live with it sooner rather than later.
Well, tell me the basic concept of how it's going to work, because I have no idea.
Oh, sure.
I'd love to hear
Absolutely.
about it.
Yeah, in a nutshell, what Auction Wire is going to be is, imagine it's like your Google search for all the auction houses at once. And so you don't have to put any information in there at all, meaning I'm going to show you or explain to you a few different ways that you can use it. So you decide you have an itch one night, Mike, that you want to scratch, and you just want to look up 11 different things. Mickey Mantle, M116, T206. Well, instead of doing it on eBay, on MySlabs, on Mile High, on Heritage, you'll do so at auctionwire.ai. But what's really cool is kind of like the next step. Let's say you've recently sold off some cards and you're like, I've really been targeting that Shoeless Joe, Cracker Jack, or W514. You and I both know that it doesn't come up for sale very often. And when it does, there is a chance, believe it or not, that it might be at a own it now or a fixed price listing versus an auction. So that's another feature that I want to let folks know about, is that we are collectors. Mark and I, my partner, we are collectors at heart. So we understand that although auctions are paramount and most of the activity that will be taking place on Auction Wire, thus the name, there is going to be instances like Memory Lane, like REA, and I think to a lesser extent Heritage as well, and some other places also that are going to have these buy it now, including eBay, own it now. And as well as I do, we've had friends that because of the notification they've got from an eBay item, they were able to buy it. Well, that doesn't really exist right now across all auction houses. So imagine getting notification, I'm just making it up. You have the 1948 Leaf Jackie Robinson PSA 1 on your list. So what we can't do quite yet, but working on, is we can't tell you which one is centered quite yet. But what we can tell you is when a PSA 1 comes up for sale, when an authentic comes up for sale, I mean, if you want one and less, or to be fair, you want 1 to 3. You can set all these different ranges and have some fun and be notified, Mike, through the method that you choose. So if you're an email person, great, we're going to hit your email. If you'd rather get a text, because let's be honest, I'm more of a text person. If I want something immediate, I don't want to hear about a deal through email because it's likely going to be gone when I ultimately get to my email in 3.5 hours. So we're going to be able to push it through that, through SMS, and a variety of other really exciting things for folks, so that whether it be your collector, whether it be your dealer, whether it be your investor, or you're kind of a hybrid of all of those or just some of those, we believe that we're going to be of use to you. And I don't want to misquote, because obviously it's not been set in stone yet, but the cost for something like this for a user is going to be very reasonable, meaning in the beginning, call it a 30-day-ish time period. It's going to be free. So that way you feel confident this is going to be something that's going to benefit you and your hobby life. And in terms of what we're going to charge, it's going to be like $10 a month, $100 a year for an annual membership to utilize the service. And you'll be able to execute as many save searches as you want, as many searches through the site. And to be clear, if you're someone who's tech savvy and you have 37 different things on your want list, you'll actually be able to upload, if you already have a CSV or an Excel file, etc., you'll be able to upload and interact with Auction Wire in such a way that I think we're going to be making bidding and auctions fun again.
Wow. Guys, we didn't talk about this before.
I don't have any of it written out either, but we were just discussing it.
No, it's fantastic, because part of the discussion that I wanted to have about auction houses is the oversaturation of it, the absolute, how do you keep track of everything? How do you keep track of, and there's auction report, right? But a calendar, an interactive, like, okay, I'm getting a huge bonus in November. What's coming up in November? What auctions?
And by the way, Ryan's a friend of mine. I think Auction Report is great, but you hit it on the head. That's more from like a macro, broad level. I'm getting a bonus in November, as you said, and I want to plan extra for the December auction. So making it up.
Right. Yeah. And I get that report, and I like it. But the searchability that you're talking about is, I think, going to be a game changer for guys like me that Leighton, I've found all the low hanging fruit. Now I'm looking for the more esoteric, strange, not come up very often type cards. And so to be able to have some saved searches that'll ping me on my phone. Oh, so-and-so is running that in their, November auction. Great. Good to know, and I just think that's fantastic. I'll be your first sign up. Count me in.
Excellent. Well, we're excited, Mike, to have you, as well as to help many other collectors. And you brought up a great point. I didn't think about this, but something that I find, listen, I am a collector as well, and I don't have an unlimited budget, that I find really frustrating because of the way my bidding methodology. I often don't find out about an item I really want until like 3 days are left in an auction, maybe less. Mike, there's no room to maneuver then.
Right.
But if you find out that a certain PMG, a certain Jackie Robinson, a certain Babe Ruth, a certain T206 with a rare back, all of a sudden, if you get notified on the first day of a 21-day auction or 18-day auction, you have a little bit more time to plan, not just the bidding, but also the strategy for your own financial situation and your own collection.
Yeah, you might have time. Oh, I'm going to sell off a few things, or what can I get rid of to own this if that's the way people go. Yeah, the more lag time, the better. Although I will tell you, it's frustrating as a collector, because I'm your audience, by the way, for this whole auction. Like, guys like me are your audience for AuctionWire, because for a long time, auctions went under the radar. I got so many deals back in the day because nobody, the bigger stuff always went for a lot, but all the stuff at the back end of an auction, I'd be just, bottom feeding back there and finding great deals and getting cool stuff. And
that's a great point, Mike. I just want to add, because you just hit on it. Believe it or not, when we were pitching some of the auction houses before we really started to get some momentum, because now we signed quite a number of them to AuctionWire. But in the beginning, we were flat out telling them, listen, you don't really need us to promote your $150,000 1950 Bowman Jackie Robinson PSA 9. I'd like to think that we're going to get you a buyer at some point at that level. But I said, this is where you're really lacking, is the $400 55 tops Jackie Robinson in the 2.5. Kind of similar to what you were just alluding to. And I feel bad because maybe we're going to cost you a few extra dollars now that we're trying to bring the data to everyone's fingertips. But I also know that we also value our time. And similar to what we were talking about off air, and I don't want to get, too derailed here, but our time on this earth is limited. And so I don't want to spend in 10 years from now looking back and saying, I'm really proud that I've spent 373 hours trying to bid in auctions. I'd rather have the number be 10% of that, and I figured out what to do with the other 300 plus hours of my life. That would be amazing.
Yeah, at 45 years in this hobby, sitting around thumbing through auctions, maybe finding something, is not how I want to spend my evening, right? Maybe occasionally, but I'd rather just, okay, here's the 20 cards I need, tap, 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 I type it in, right? And know that I'll get notified when those come available, if they do. And great. I do have to correct you, Leighton. It's going to bug me. It's 49 leaf. Come on, it's really 49 leaf. It's not 48.
It's funny just because you're bringing it up. And I'm not, I've read the book, by the way, in the plane. It was really a great read.
Yes.
And I bought a bunch to give out as well. I'm not disputing it. In fact, it looks like it's pretty clear. I thought that people would be more alarmed. Like, in other words, either saying that the 49 leaf Jackie is too expensive, or that the 49 Bowman Jackie is undervalued. And it just seems as though it's like the sun's still shining here, the moon's still coming up at night. I don't think really I think it's fun for you and I to discuss, and others who are, card hobbyists, i.e. nerds. But I personally haven't seen it impact anything as far as dollars and cents. I'm curious if you have.
No, not at all. Because I think most of us that collect those cards understand Does it really matter if it's 48 or 49? Technically, no. I'd like it to be as accurate as possible. I mean, we have cards all the time that have copyrights from 1 year, but are technically called the next year when they're actually released, right? That doesn't, Topps used to do that in their bit, that, or Donruss, and, because they would be copyrighted the year before and then come out in April or February or whatever.
Yep.
That's just the same thing that happened with that Leaf set. And nobody's ever, I mean, SGC will write 48, 49 Leaf on it.
I've seen that.
But PSA will not budge because they don't have to, I guess, is the best answer.
That's a good way to put it.
But I do, tying a bow on the auction deal, I am, what's the time frame on this? Like, I don't know what you can tell me. I literally knew nothing about this.
So sure. So, I believe that by November 1, we're going to have functionality that we're going to be able to open to the public. But to be clear, because I want to peel the curtain back a little bit, understand that in that time frame, someone like you, Mike, maybe we'll talk off air, we're going to have a small group of users who are going to be part of the soft launch, so that if we miss dotting an I or crossing a T, or you're like, oh my God, you got to put this in pink, who knows? We want to do that before we reveal that and release it to the general public. But I believe in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
If you need a beta tester, I'm your Huckleberry on that. If you need another guy, I don't,
No, we do, and I appreciate it. I'll certainly hold you to that.
That's fantastic. I already now know what I'm going to call this episode is a new way to search for auction house items, because I was just going to ask you about the general state of auctions. I didn't even know you were doing this deal, which is very, very exciting, by the way. That's pretty freaking cool. I'm excited to see it. All right, let's move on to a different topic. I only got you for a little bit of time, so as he leaves, there goes Leighton.
Sorry, I was just trying to.
That's the end of the show, guys.
Yeah, that was good. Peace.
Yeah, that's it. You mentioned you're a vintage centric business. Have you always been a vintage guy? Like what?
Oh, it's a great question.
Okay.
No. When I was, 15 years old, I was not. But I believe what happened by the time I graduated Rutgers College in 2000, and my first job, instead of taking my experience from college, I worked for Johnson & Johnson. Their world headquarters is in New Brunswick. And instead of going to work for them, I decided to get a job in the baseball card field, which of course was frowned upon by many around me. And so, I started off working for Mark Murphy, the baseball card kid, and he dealt with some modern wax, but mainly vintage. And so really, I think by the time I graduated school, Mike, I just saw a lot of my dollars go down, for my own personal collecting, meaning whether it be a 92 Fleer Ultra basketball or a 93 Pinnacle baseball. And I know we exist in a different world today, and I'm not trying to compare the two, but I also remembered some of those cars I could have bought when I was 12, 14, 16 years old, where versus where they sell today, or when I first graduated school in the 2000s. And I had always had an affinity for that time period, but just candidly never the money. So when I graduated school, Mark Murphy dealt with unopened, and probably the smartest thing he was like the Steve Hart of today before Steve Hart. And so the smartest thing I think I did beyond taking the job was to be upfront and to let him know, hey, I'm excited, but I have one caveat. Will you allow me to buy and sell singles on the side, because it doesn't compete with your business? And he did. And so make no mistake, I was still dealing with the Barry Bondses and the Ken Griffey Jr. rookies. But, I started to I'm making it up. I bought a 68 top set, and I broke it up, and I sold the Nolan Ryan, sold the Johnny Bench. And beyond the dollars and cents, Mike, I'm sure you can see it by the smile on my face, I just really love vintage cards. So once I had a little bit of capital and the ability to exist in the space, to be, trading with them and collecting them, and then ultimately dealing, with them full time, that's really how my path was kind of forged into vintage. I wish my dad would have said to me when I was young, son, buying packs of 1988 tops are going to be completely worthless one day. I was never advised that. In fact, the opposite. Actually, 87 tops. I remember I was just having a conversation with a buddy of mine from high school the other day, Mike, turning the pages. I'd fill up 9 pocket pages with Will Clark, with Wally Joyner. And, rich then is a different term than it means today. But as a 12-year-old kid or whatever I was, 10-year-old kid, 9-year-old kid, I felt rich and it was really fun. But of course, all those cards ultimately became worthless
They did.
or worth close to zero. And so I just feel that, at least for the way that I conduct myself and my business in general, it's just a safer place to exist in vintage cards. And it also happens to be a place I love. So it works well for me.
Yeah, I think all collectors, your time in the hobby, we're all a compilation of our experience, right? And so we grew up in the junk wax era. Me starting collecting in 81 and not knowing any better. By the time I knew anything, I'm a teenager and it's the late 80s and I'm just buying everything. And, that experience drove me to vintage because I realized, God, they printed a bajillion of these. I want to go buy the stuff that they didn't, or that they might've printed a lot of, but they just, mom and dads threw them out, as my dad says in the intro of this show. And my mom had a great card collection that got thrown out, which is unusual for that. But she, was a child of the, 50s and 60s. And so that is, we're all a culmination of our experience, and our experience, you and me and other people out there in our age group, was a time when we were told these were going to be great. They weren't, in terms of value, and doesn't make them not cool. I love having all my 80s stuff, and I love having Jeter rookies and all the things from the 90s and the Griffies, and just like you're talking about. But it doesn't get me excited because I grew up on that stuff, right? It was normal. So now what can I get excited about? It's the stuff I've never seen. It's the stuff and so this culmination of experience over time, these new people come into the hobby that don't know anything about cards or they're excited about it. They like it. They don't know though, what a 64 tops looks like, well, I think, I see guys on videos. Well, I think this is a 73 and it's like a 77, and they're just learning, and it's not, we all have to learn. There was a time I didn't know what a 73 or a 77 was. And we all have to learn that. And I'm just further down the road in my collecting path, as are a lot of people. It doesn't matter where you are, just keep learning. That's, I guess, the point of that whole spiel is don't stop learning, because there's always stuff I learn stuff in the card hobby every week. I learn new things, honestly. And I love that. I love that it's a never ending journey of education, right? And it's stuff I love. And so I have a passion for it. We all know in school, we pay attention more to the teacher that's teaching us a topic we enjoy, right? And so when I'm listening to you or someone else talk about cards, and I'm like, didn't know that. And I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to listen. And I'm going to absorb that. And I may have to hear it a few times, but I'll get there. So I was just wanting to hear kind of your gravitation towards vintage, which is by and large the same as most people. We all collect what we can in the moment. When we're a kid, we collect what's current, and we go at a card shop, we'll look at what's in the shiny cases, and we're like, ooh, Mickey Mantle or Hank Aaron, Willie Mays. I'd love to own those cards. Now it's Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Christy Matthews. Your tastes change over time in terms of what's exciting to you. And that's maybe a follow-up question. Having seen all that you've seen, Leighton, and all the stuff, collections that you've bought, and I've had a little bit of that with chasing cardboard, but not to the experience that you have. Do you ever get tired of looking? Does it ever get boring, or, oh, I've seen this 1,000 times, or how do you feel about that every time?
No, that part doesn't get boring. It doesn't.
You never go, oh, I do walk around shows now though, Leighton, and I'll see a case of 50s, great stuff, great 50s stuff. I'm like, well, I have all those cards. So I kind of gloss over it, and I'm looking for the, W517, Tris Speaker or something,
Well, you're speaking my language now because I want to get a little bit deeper here. So, make no mistake, right? We all have a little bit of being a vintage card snob in us, depending on what we collect. Um, and then there's, the notion of that I'm also a dealer. So, I guess what I'm saying is when I walk around the National for myself, and I'm just enjoying it. I mean, I enjoy all of it. I'll let me backtrack. When I'm walking around the National buying 50s cards, like we know in our sleep,
Right.
and I can buy them and I make money, and it's not that I don't like them. But when I get to the pre-war, I know a lot. I consider myself to be an expert, but understand that there's people who collect a set for 48 years. They definitely know more than I do. There's no doubt that they do about a set. And so, Mike, I'm like a little kid. I soak up the knowledge. I might buy something, but if not, I just really enjoy looking. So the lines for me often get blurry, but I know exactly what you mean because, and I'm not suggesting that there's too many 50s cards out there, but if there was a little birdie or a camera on my shoulder at the National, I was literally laughing at myself several times. Like I just shoot away probably $1 million case or table of 50s cards, but I'm like, I don't need these right now. I need to look for things that after the Nationals over, I might regret not seeing enough. Who knows what it could be? O-backs, T3. It doesn't matter. But pre-war type cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't mean it to sound snobby. There was a time that I would stay at a 50s case and pick out a dozen cards that I wanted and make a deal with a dealer. I've just, hopefully everyone's progressing in their hobby journey. And that's just where I've gotten to in my hobby journey. I loved that period of my hobby journey when I cared very much about acquiring those cards and getting them into my collection. And so that day is just in the rearview mirror now. And it's not that I don't appreciate or love those cards. It's just the collector in me is, and I don't know that this is a great attitude, but what's next? What's the next thing? And I do have to really stop myself a lot, Leighton, and say, okay, just enjoy what you have for a little, because I have I love my collection. I enjoy my collection very much. I need to enjoy it.
Mike, if there was something to spend a few minutes on or a minute on that's kind of out of left field, like we talked about before.
Yeah.
That's what we're all lacking and missing. And I don't mean this as a negative, like, oh, you screwed up or I've messed up or something like that. What I mean is you were alluding to it on the interview you did. And I made a note because I was like, I'd love a day where a buddy of mine would want to come over and see my cards. But I'm just being honest, that doesn't happen that often for me. It does happen in the store in my office, but my home, not so much. I don't think the word is trade night. I think it's just a dinner with maybe you bring a card or two with you. I think that it would be nice if we could figure out a way to siphon off an event or a set of events that don't always have to do with the buying and the selling. And pardon me for even saying the trading, because I know trade nights have become like, rock concerts.
Right.
And rightfully so. They're super fun. But like I'm already working on it. So I'm not, letting the cat out of the bag, but like I'm trying to put together just a very small dinner in New York City because I live right across the river and I happen to think that the food's great in the city. And I know there's a number of collectors and there's probably people I don't know. I don't know how to do that without kind of telling the whole world about it, if you will. But the point is, I would like to go to Mike's house one afternoon with nothing to do other than to drink a lemonade or a beer, whatever your beverage of choice is, and
Whiskey.
with no agenda. I don't have to leave by a certain time. I don't have my son that night. Maybe my son comes with me, and we just BS for cards until I start drooling on myself, falling asleep in the rocking chair. And maybe this is like too much of a vivid picture, and we didn't talk about this pre-show, so I don't know if this is all right, but this is what I think we could all, like we all are coveting, is that connection.
Yeah. I guarantee you I've had more people in the community at my house in my card room than anyone. Dozens and dozens of people have been here to hang out, just like you said, and we'll grab a whiskey. I'm going this weekend up to St. Louis, up to Missouri to hang out with Chris from Missouri, who's a buddy of mine, and I want to go see his card room, and I want to look at his stuff, and I want to hang. We're friends, and I want to just sit around and shoot the bull and have a little adult beverage. That to me is the sharing part of it, and I just want to enjoy his collection. Hey, why do you have this? And this is cool. Where does this fit? And hear stories, and we don't do that enough, mainly because, and I'll tell you why. I think there's a general fear, I think, of being out there. It's not unhealthy either to feel that way, but at the same time, you're putting yourself out there. I remember the first time I had somebody over, my wife was like, "Are you crazy? Like, you're having someone over?" Or God forbid, I would talk to somebody on the phone and give them my address because they wanted to send me, a card or whatever. And she's like, "You can't tell people where I'm like, "Honey, if people are going to want to find me, they're going to find me, and I'm not inviting negative things or don't want that to happen to anyone." But I finally came to this realization, Leighton, that if I'm not sharing all of this and it just sits in a black hole, then what the hell's the point? Whether it's on YouTube and talking about why I'm buying things or what I'm getting and where it fits. And I had somebody tell me the other day on a comment, it cracked me up. They were like, "Here's another baseball collector video of the most ordinary collection in the world," and I'm like, "You don't know me very well, do you?" They have no idea. And Carl, who you're referring to, who was here, he's from Australia, by the way. And he came.
Yeah, I met him at the National.
Great dude. Absolutely great dude. And he was here, and he's like, "Mike," he knew he was going to be coming through this way. And he's like, can I come over? And I'm like, "Of course you can come over," which, like, yes, let's spend a morning. And I, cleared my schedule, and we hung out all morning, and it was fantastic with him and his grandson. I mean, we had a blast, and I got to show him cool stuff that nobody ever sees. And he was blown away, and it was fun, and telling stories, and he was showing me cool stuff. And I can't put a price on that. I can't even describe how cool that is. And we have a connection now that's unique, and special, truthfully. So we don't do that. And so you are more than welcome to come over and spend an afternoon where your calendar's free. Do you ever come to the Dallas show? I don't know if you ever come.
I've not been yet, but I've been out to Dallas for Heritage.
Sure. Well, if you're ever in town and you have an hour or 10, come by and we'll hang out. And you'll probably want to, like, what can I learn from Mike? And the answer is probably not a whole lot, but we'll have fun.
I'm going to certainly try, and I'm going to have fun doing so. That's for sure.
Yeah. So why do you, is my theory about why people aren't as open to having, I'm telling you, I'm going to see some collections this weekend when I'm in Missouri that are completely off the radar, and they're off the charts amazing, and nobody knows about. There's so many of those out there, Leighton, that
I agree. I want to give a shout out to Net 54, and my good buddy Leon runs it, and it's a wonderful place. If folks don't know, check it out at net54baseball.com. And the reason why I like it, Mike, is because it's a place for guys like you and I. And if you don't know something, you can ask without worrying about being judged. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because Net 54, I believe, and hopefully I'm not outing it because it's not a public event, but they've now done something, and I believe I'm going to go in February, where, it's just a number of collectors that have some pretty substantial stuff. You're not going in anyone's home, but it's almost like, imagine a private trade night.
Yep.
There's really not much trading going on per se, but it seems like the kind of crowd and material that I would like to see. And maybe we're hopefully heading more in that direction with events like that in the future, with dinners, whether it be at your house or in New York City. And honestly, like I said, listening to your video and just this chat we're having, I am grateful. Having the store allows me to have this home base where people feel comfortable to just show up unannounced, obviously, but certainly not at my home. And I think that there's something to be said for what you're bringing up here. Why are we not? Well, I believe we are with trepidation. And maybe we could all do a little bit better of the job the next time we get together and we see Dan, right? And we see John and we see Tony and others. I'm just making this up, right? Like most of us are going to probably go to the Philly show. I know you said you hadn't been. Maybe you make that your time in December, and we get together the Thursday before,
Yeah.
right? Because the Thursday there's really not much activity going on, and yet we could all bring 2 cards to dinner. And the rule is you have to leave with 2 cards. I'm making this up, of course, but like,
Yeah.
there's just so much fun to be had. And let's be honest, I think sometimes life just moves really fast. So it's hard sometimes it's like a line from a movie, right?
Yeah.
Take a break, strap in, and make sure you enjoy it and smell it. So,
yeah, we have, in Strongsville, we do a get together as a community, and that's always just hanging out. It's not a trade night. It's just a hangout. Like, let's all just hang out and show off what we bought and what we brought to trade or what we brought to sell. Excuse me. So I think we're gravitating towards that. I think as the community starts to feel more and more comfortable with each other, so to speak, with the idea that, look, nobody's out there to rob you, or at least that's not necessarily true, but I'm not, or it's most people, pretty much everybody I've met are great. And if they're dicks, we get rid of them. They don't hang around very long. They get weeded out pretty quick. But everybody I've interacted with, Leighton, in this community has been amazing. And I love having people over. It's fun to show, look, I worked hard to build my collection. I like to show it off. And I mean that in the most non-obtuse way that I can. It's fun to talk about and show. And I think we are getting, I agree with you. I think we're getting there. I think doing things like, hey, in Philly, I'm going to host a dinner and I'm going to invite a dozen guys or 10 guys or something. And let's we have to make an effort. We being the people that can get people to come, like, hey, I'm going to host this thing. And here's the other thing. You got to be willing to say, all right, it's Dutch. Everybody buys their own deal. Or, hey, I'm going to get I'll pay for it, or what, different things. There's ways you can get it paid for. Heck, everybody will pay for their own. If they're coming, it's not that big a deal. If that's something you want to do, and you start doing these things and people will hear about them. The YouTube get together started as like 20 guys, and it turned into 500 people, which is great. Like you said, if it could get out and then more and more people come, well, is that really the worst thing? Right. You got to deal with the logistical issues with that, but man, we really did go off on a tangent there, didn't we?
we did well.
So to that end, talking about the Philly show and all that, I see shows continuing just to be incredibly strong for the hobby. I think we got to maybe a little oversaturation of shows in post-COVID era. And I think it's kind of come back down to kind of the leveling of the ship, so that we now have more shows than we've really ever had before. But I don't think that there are too many shows. Most shows I hear people going to are packed all the time, and it's an incredibly popular way to enjoy the hobby from where I sit. Do you agree with that statement, or do you think shows are viable for a long time?
I mean, as long as costs can remain reasonable and stable from the vendor standpoint, meaning not just the vendor who's setting up, but also to the outfit that maybe has to rent a big hall or a big conference facility, whatever the case is. But I agree with you. I think it's a wonderful way to enjoy the hobby, no matter what angle you're from. Meaning, if you're someone like yourself who's 100% or 110% collector, great. You drop in for 15 minutes to 3 hours, whatever the number is for you. You're gonna have a great time, even if you buy nothing. For someone like myself, who's a little bit more mixed, meaning I'm a collector, but I'm also a dealer, I love going to him either with my son, because I can find a unique way to enjoy it that way. And if he's not with me, great. I'll have fun enjoying it that way as well. But I do agree with you. The way I pitch card shows to anyone who thinks that they may not be for them, or they're quote unquote a waste, is just tell me what your favorite card shop is. Maybe short of Burbank, I guess, because they have like 40 million cards. But, short of possibly 1 or 2 card shops, it's like going to a card shop bazaar. And my mother uses that word, so that's why I use that word. But you have all this wonderful, like, now in New York City, like food truck events are a thing. Meaning food trucks go to an event, they all park, and you buy a ticket to go to an event with 39 food trucks. I don't think that's silly. I have friends who thinks that's silly, but yet I think it's an amazing event, and you don't know until you go. So to me, even the local card shop, or local card show that only has 38 tables, the worst that's going to happen, I've been telling you, you're going to find out they have too much Pokemon. If Pokemon's not your thing, just keep a chart. Just make sure you don't go back to that one. Where are you going to be out? $6 and a couple hours of your time, a little bit of gas. Meaning, I feel it's like a very low entry level way to have a large amount of fun.
And it's an experience. Buying cards at a card show, to me, has not changed, fundamentally has not changed in 40 years. It's still essentially the same experience. They're trying to, spice it all up and add all these whiz bangs and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, a typical card show experience has not changed for a really, really long time. There's a dude sitting there and he's got his stuff in a case, and you can, haggle and bargain and all the things. And it just feels, it's just a nostalgic moment every time I go.
Totally agree.
Because it just feels the same as it did when I was 14. I went to my first national in 1990. It's like, okay, this is not that different. I mean, the basic experience, right, is not that different.
Yeah. I got an interesting question for you as a collector. So let's say you walk up to someone's booth and there's a card of consequence. It's really immaterial what it costs. Just to you and your budget, it's a card of consequence.
Sure.
Do you like to look at the card and just kind of have silence and, have someone say to you, hey, if you need any help, let me know? Or do you prefer the flip side, even if they're telling you the truth? Hey, this is a great example. It's very well centered, great eye appeal for the grade, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying one is right or wrong, but I'm curious what you as a collector prefer.
You know what I love a dealer to do, and this rarely happens. Hey, why are you looking at that card? Pick your, let's say I do want a 49 leaf Jackie. Why are you looking at it? Interesting. What makes you want that card? If a dealer asks that to me, beyond just, hey, it's a great example. I can tell if it's nicely, I don't need someone to tell me that. I can see either it's apparent to me or not. But why do I care about this card? Find out why they care, because then you can, I get it. He was great. It's Jackie, he did what he did. And you can have this conversation with a buyer that gets them to love the card just as much as they really did. It just gets them to relive why they're wanting that card.
Which they almost always enjoy. And, letting the cat out of the bag as a salesman, it actually helps you.
Yes.
And listen, I don't know if there's a right or a wrong, but I found I would rather be understated. In other words, someone picks up a card and they start kind of like mumbling to themselves, and they're like, Leighton, do you think this is a nice example? Oh, yeah, it's great. Oh, why didn't you say anything? Well, because you have the card. You
Right.
don't need me to tell you what it looks like. If you have a question, Mike, I'm happy to answer. But I'll give you a very, very quick story. The folks, and I think we did a video of it because it was fascinating. I don't know if it was a husband and a wife, but it was definitely like a girlfriend and a boyfriend. I think I got the feeling they'd been together for a while. I didn't understand why they wanted to buy a 48/49 leaf Jackie Robinson. Mike, they came by like 3 days in a row, and it's either the last day of the National or second to last day. And, at one point they were certainly negotiating, but at another point they just wanted to like kind of feel the card in their hand, decide if this was the piece they wanted to go with. And it was remarkable because as soon as I asked them, I was curious, genuinely and generally curious, like, why do you want this card? They weren't flipping it, which I'm going to bring up a story in a second. And they said Jackie Robinson is very important in the game of baseball, and they are putting things away for the long term. They're trying to be very selective. Items they're going to put in their safe deposit box. And, I didn't ask too many questions. I thought it was really cool because they clearly love the card, but yet they also understand the financial instrument it may represent to them. And then as a kicker, you ready for this? They finally pull the trigger, and I think they pay almost all cash And it became, you know how it can be for a cash deal of $17,000, $18,000, $19,000. It looks like it's even more money than it actually is sometimes, right? Not to say that's not a lot, because it is. So someone that I had just was introduced to me, clearly this is a man of means. He was looking at some expensive cards, showed me some expensive things. And he goes, Leighton, what can you recommend to me at your booth? And, like kind of half joking, I was like, oh, I would have bought that 48 leaf / 49 leaf Jackie that these folks just bought. And he said, can I see it? And I said, listen, you do me a favor. Can you give them 5 minutes? You know what I mean? Like they're literally still counting the money.
Right.
Like just give them a minute to, get settled. So they get settled, and these folks are a great sport. So this new collector, to be fair, a new gentleman I met, but definitely an old school collector, was like, Leighton, why do you like the card? So I didn't hide it. I already sold it. It wasn't that hard for me to explain to him why the card was great. So he said to me, do you think that they would sell it? I said, I don't know. You're certainly willing to try. And if they sell it, like, I don't need anything. I've been paid. If this is a card they want to sell you, God bless, right? He starts off by offering $1,000 more. And I think he ended by offering either $2,000 or $2,500. And I remember the woman looked at the guy, and they just it was like a sign in baseball. They shook it off.
Right.
Because whatever small amount they could have made right then, they were planning to hold it much longer. And I really do get the feeling that as much as they want to make money on that card is not just a financial asset or instrument to them. It is the highlight of their National Sports Collectors Convention from 2025. And we did a video with them. You can actually find it on my IG channel. And they were great sports about it. But to your point earlier, it's not just the card, it's the story behind it and the journey that makes all of this together such a beautiful tale.
Yeah, if you engage people at your booth or in your shop of, you might say, oh, are you looking for anything in particular? And they might say, no. Like if they come up to your booth, no, I'm just browsing, which is kind of how I am most of the time to a dealer if they ask that fair question. And it's like, I'm just browsing and I'll see something. And if I stare at something long enough and they go, oh, cool, do you like Lou Gehrig? Well, yeah, he's my favorite player. Oh, well, let me show you these other Lou Gehrigs. Do you have any, oh yeah, I have that one, but I need that one, and then you start connecting with the purchaser, the collector, the person on the other end, and you get them to talk. If you get someone else talking about why they love it, they're already halfway down the road of buying the card, right? And
agreed.
So I just think there's not enough of that, and it's all transactional, right? It's this flip, get it in, get it out, get it in, get it out, get it in, get it out. And not that you can't do that with everybody, I guess. Maybe you can, but to me, most dealers don't know. And I'll bring it up a lot, honestly, because there's a lot of dealers that are collectors too. And so if I'm buying a card that's, I never lie, but let's say it's the last card I need for the 69 Topps Hall of Fame run or something in PSA. And I'm like, man, this Roberto Clemente is the last card I need. This is so cool. This will finish out my set of Hall of Fame run for PSA. And this is the last one I need. This is a great example. And I'll butter them up with how much I love their card is great, but it's a little over, would you take this? And I never do what's the least you'll take for this card? That is so stupid. It's on the freaking card. I put a price tag on it for a reason. And so I will say, I'll make an offer. I'll just say, I'll tell them what I'm willing to pay. Would you do this? Or what I'd like to pay. And most of the time the answer is, no, I can't do that. But, and then we start the dance, right? But I never start with, hey, what's the absolute lowest you'll take on that? I mean, that just seems like the silliest question in the world that anybody could ever ask. Or do you have any room on this? Like, what? No, I'll make it. If I'm interested in the card and I think it's maybe a little high, I might say, hey, would you do, it's priced at 800. I might say, would you do 650? Oh no, I can't do 650. And I love the answer of, I've got more than that into it. It's like, well, shame on you. Bummer for you, because it's not worth 800. Just because you have that into it, that's not my problem.
Or how about I'm just not interested, like what you had for breakfast and also what you pay for your cards or what your bills are at home or what your problems are. Yeah, meaning like, yes, I agree with you, Mike, but you're not going to change people who are set in their ways.
Of course. But I think if you have respect and you have a great cordial conversation, and I will get better deals if I explain why I love this card. To flip it where it's great as a dealer to ask why they're buying the card. I like to explain what I'm not just buying the card just for giggles. I'm buying it because it fits somewhere in one of the projects I'm working on, and here's where it fits, and here's why I need it. Here's why I love it, and that will usually end up getting me a better price on the card, because I don't want to say sympathy or they feel bad for me. That's not it at all. It's more, hey, I like that I'm helping you do that. I like that I'm helping you complete a set. And Craig says this all the time. Craig Halbig, who is Halbig Cards, one of my good friends. He's like, I love helping people collect finished sets and, all those things. So I'm going to help them. I want to help them out as much as I can. If, I got the last 10 cards for my 64 set. Great. So that it matters to be more than just a transaction and in and out. Like you said, with the Jackie story. Oh my gosh, we've talked 56 minutes. See, I told you this would be easy. Like I'm looking up, I'm going, holy moly. All right, last question, and I'll let you go. What gets you, like, are there cards out there that you go, man, I'd be excited if I got to see this? What are some of those things that would still make you excited today?
Sure. I guess I'll share it because we didn't get it. I don't know if we're going to get it. They said they only want to get it appraised, and it is what it is. If it ends up coming up and we didn't get it, I'll certainly point back to this video and say, dang it, I should have kept my mouth shut. But we got contacted recently with a fresh collection of Red Cross tobacco, Red Cross backs, and they're really hard. And the story's super cool. We don't know if the family's going to sell. And I don't exactly know the value because I don't remember the exact specs of everything. But whatever it was worth, it felt like it was worth 100 times that to me, because it's like an impossible group of fresh cards to find. So it's not just about the money. It's about discovering real amazing treasure that, if I'm lucky, because of my means, maybe I'll be able to keep one of those things, right? And then everything else would be sold at some point, maybe two. But it's not just, Red Cross. I've talked about this before, like getting back to our friend, the cards from the 50s. So if you said to me, like, I'm just making it up, like, 53 tops, right? Or 57 tops baseball. And I like both those sets. But if you showed me those sets in like VG to VGX, I'm not saying I don't want them. They're not really that great to me. More so, I like the 53s worn than the 57s. But if you showed me like a crisp, clean, I don't care the grade, just well centered, and it looks like it came out of a pack, 57 Mantle with a real photo, or a Campy, or a 53 Campy. I love the 53 Berra.
Yeah.
I mean, forget about the value for a moment. Seeing cards like that actually survived multiple decades in really great condition, that fires me up, Mike.
Yeah, that would fire me up too. I have gotten to the point where I've just recognized that the way the hobby has moved and its popularity and vintage is becoming bigger deal, that I can still find really nice looking cards in 3s, 4s, 5s, from the 40s and stuff, which is kind of what I'm focusing on now. Stuff in the 40s, play balls and Bowmans and stuff like that. You can find really nice looking cards in those mid grades that are great. You have to be patient, but they're out there. You don't need a 7 or an 8, right? Those are cool, and I'd love to own them, but I'd rather have it just trying to get the most for the least, if that makes sense.
Totally does. I feel like we could easily talk another hour, so I'm going to try to be concise.
Right.
And then made a note about a topic for our next topic. Our next talk. This clearly won't happen tonight. But I agree wholeheartedly, and honestly, it could be overwhelming. But I had a situation recently where I wanted a PSA 10 of a modern card that I wanted when I was a kid. And without telling the longer story, I only could get the 9. And when I got it in, It was a fraction of the 10 price. I was so effing happy because I realized I don't actually care about the 10. I just wanted a nice copy that made me smile like this, that reminded me of the card that I had decades ago.
Yeah.
And then I took that money, and to be clear, I do buy some modern cards. I do buy and sell some modern, but I generally buy modern and hang on to it for a while. And I used the money I saved from buying the 10 and used it for something else I wanted to acquire. So per your point, like I just wanted more, and I didn't really care so much that something was gem mint or mint or and I think that's really the sign of a, I'm not saying you're not a true collector, but you can tell the difference when someone is collecting with a financial influence, uh, that's largely the reason why they're doing it versus the love. I think that they're both more than okay. And a lot of people are a hybrid of that, myself included. But yeah, I'm still grateful that I enjoy the thrill of the hunt and the way that the hobby is moving. I believe that as long as I want to make a living, operating in a hobby full of sports cards, that I'll be able to do that. And I'll be honest, Mike, when I graduated school in 2000, I did not think that was the case.
Buy 9s and sell 10s. Like seriously, like I have 9s and Judge rookies and Otani. I love all those cards. I just don't need a 10. I don't need to pay the 10 tax. There's no point to me when I can put a 10 and a 9 next to each other, and good luck telling me the difference, right? On a modern card.
Yeah, I don't want to debate it because I do think that depending on the card, just the financial investment could be better in a 10 proposition than a 9. But that's not what we're talking about here, Mike.
It's
We're
not.
talking exactly. We're talking about truly just being happy with your copy of the card. And when you think, it almost feels like stealing. You're like, oh my God, I just got an extra $3,000 in my card budget because I didn't care about the number on the card. That to me is like why the industry or the hobby is so cool, because you could zig and zag whichever way you want. And as long as you can stay afloat and you enjoy it with a smile on your face, we'll be back for our next talk.
Yeah. I think on a 9, it still says above the card, mint. Still a mint card. You know what I mean? Like, man, we have a lot. We have to do a part 2 at some point. But
yes, well, I wanted to get into SGC versus PSA, but we'll save that for the next time because we'll easily be talking about that for an hour.
Yeah, this has been great. Leighton, I so appreciate you coming on the show. This is your first time on the show, and I appreciate it. And yeah, guys, be on the lookout at some point in the future. Leighton and I will we'll pick up right where we left off, and may have to go watch this to remember because I'm getting old. But this was fun. Thank you, Leighton. Appreciate it.
Oh, this was a blast. Thanks for having me. And I did just want to mention, because you were kind enough to allow me to plug myself at the beginning, I did forget to mention my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So if you want to check out, not just my podcast, but if you want to check out some of the stories behind the collections that we buy, that to me is the best content that's on our channel. Because if you're, a card collecting nerd like myself, I like to know where these cards are coming from and kind of the story behind the story.
For sure. And it's just collect on YouTube?
I believe it's all one word, just collect. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, everybody go check that out. And yeah, leave comments down below on YouTube, and you can do the same on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this. But thanks everybody so much for checking out another episode. We'll catch you soon for another one. Have a great one and keep collecting.